So the astrology of the week of 16 August 2021 through 22 August 2021 is jam-packed. We're shifting out of this very heavy Leo Aquarius dynamic we've had all summer, and we're moving now into more of a mutable energetic, which is a shifting sands, so to speak. It's an energy of transition, and we also get this beauteous Venus in Libra, which will add a lot of pleasure and hopefully protection as we're sort of giving way to the fall energies. So let's get into the chart. Let's check out the aspects here. The first thing I want to just notice and say, actually, before I even jump into these aspects, is that we've got, this is my weekly astrology video. I'm S.J. Anderson, astrologer. Thank you for being here. Thank you for staying with me. What I'll do in this video is, one, break down the planetary sign changes, aspects, stations, if there are any. That's what I do first. Second, I will go into the moon, the sign changes that the moon makes. We always have to watch the moon as astrologers. They're the most important planets. Then I'll go in chronological order some of the charts that I'm following this week, some of the most interesting moments I find. And then lastly, we'll do a tarot cartomancy reading to just add to the symbols and the symbol set for this delineation. And so, yeah, so, you know, what a week it's been, what a summer it's been, having all of these really intense changes, especially with the new moon and full moon that we had in the Leo Aquarius axis, 2 full moons in Aquarius. I really feel strongly that those syzygies hit and dramatically changed the world at a time when Jupiter came back into Aquarius. And so we got hit with some large energy shifts, and we felt it in the outer reality. I mean, the optimism of, let's say, June gave way to this sort of hunkering down as we get into fall in the Northern Hemisphere. And I remember talking about it on this show. I was saying, we've got about a month. Remember, I was like, enjoy this month before things maybe start being pared back. And that's the power of astrology. It's a great example about the power of astrology, how we can really time these energetic shifts using just the 7 traditional planets and the basics of an astrological system. And it has such a dramatic impact on the outer world once you start paying attention. And that's why I'm an astrologer. That's why many others out there became astrologers. So let's dive into this week. I think this week is really powerful and potent. The sign changes that we're looking at, you can just see here. I mean, there's so many things happening. We've got on Monday, Mercury with the north bending there in Virgo. That might bring some eclipsy energy to Mercury. Remember, Mercury is now ruling the north node. And so I think this could be an activation via proxy or via a square from Virgo of our eclipse story, of our north node in Gemini eclipse story. Even though there are no more eclipses in Gemini, we do have Mercury, the ruler of Gemini, hitting the north bending this Monday very early in the morning. And so be watching that. I'm talking to a lot of people, and it's very clear what a house that north node is in. That is to say, in your whole sign, in the whole sign house system, which house is comprised of the sign Gemini. Those house topics have really been getting massaged by these eclipses, and a lot of people I've been talking to. And so this is maybe another little ping for that energy on the north bending, which is a resonance with the north node. We have Mercury there very early on Monday. Also on Monday, we get shortly after that, also very early in the morning, about 6:30 a.m. here in Central Europe, Venus comes into Libra. This has been a transit I've been highly anticipating for a very, very long time. We'll get into that more in my chronological breakdown. I'll talk all about Venus and Libra. But that's one of 2 sign changes this week. We also get, let's see, what is that? 16th, 17th, 18th, Thursday is the 19th, the 20th is Friday. So it's Sunday where the sun comes into Virgo on Sunday. So by the time we arrive to Monday the 23rd, the beginning of next week, we will have big shifts. You know, the Leo Aquarius axis is now only containing Jupiter and Saturn, so they're kind of left to do the final phase of their retrogradation there. they'll move direct in October. But we shift then, where we'll have this transiting stellium in Virgo. Again, another transiting stellium in Virgo. We have one now with Mars, Mercury, and Venus, but Venus shifts out of Virgo, and then the Sun comes into Virgo. And so I think the difference for me with this transiting stellium is that we don't have anything in Leo. So that whole story, beginning with Mars's ingress into Leo back in June, comes to a conclusion. And like I was saying in the beginning of this video, such a stark change in the reality from June to now. It's still summer, it's hot as it's been where I am, but the mental state and the kind of compression in the outer reality with the struggles that everyone's facing, no matter, again, there's all these varied ideas about these struggles. That's that North Node in Gemini and South Node in Sagittarius, maybe polarizing the world or having these kind of two realities. But whatever reality hat we want to put on, it's still a realm of struggle, much more than it has been, I think, in June for the collective narrative. And you can see that with all of that dance across Leo, opposing Saturn, and then Jupiter, when Jupiter came. It's astrology good. I mean, this is how it works. So this week will complete that cycle. And so that Sun into Virgo happens on Sunday, very, very late. We're actually 11:30 here in Central Europe on Sunday. So it's right at the end of the week. We kick off Virgo season. And then we also get, two aspects that are perfected aspects here. We get Mercury joining Mars on Thursday, in very early in the morning. That I'm going to talk about that in this video. We get the Sun opposite Jupiter on Friday, very early in the morning. I'll mention that incidentally to another chart I'm looking at. And then we get this third of three syzygies along that Leo Aquarius axis on Sunday at 2 p.m. And so we're really finishing out here this climactic new moon on Sunday. Kind of, we exit this moment of the Leo Aquarius oppositions with a bang, with this full moon syzygy. So let me see here. What did I have written here? Final opposition along the Leo Aquarius axis that will perfect is the Sun opposing Jupiter. Now, if we don't count the full moon, because these lunar aspects happen so quickly, but I would count the full moon here. It really is Sunday at 2 when we resolve that, those oppositions. And yeah, this is the one thing I want to say, we're getting rid of getting to the end of the summer's vibe astrologically. And that's that Leo Aquarius opposition vibe I've now mentioned like 3 times, I guess. It's a big, big deal. This is what this week represents. It's the shift out of that energy. So we're getting some new astrological energy, some new vibes. And that's always exciting. We're in the Virgo vibes, these kind of Virgoian, mercurial thinking, analysis, analytics, earthy, home. Like that really comes into more of a fruition here, but with that that Libra Venus that can add beauty and pleasure. So it's a sweet, mutable, shifting Venusian energy. And I'm, for one, welcome it, even though the shifts in our outer reality are a bit restrictive now with that opposition doing its toll on us, the Leo Aquarius opposition. We have some real sweeter energy coming in against the backdrop of the kind of global difficulty. So this week marks that shift and that birth of sort of this mutable Venusian few weeks we're going to have. It's cool. It's really, really exciting and excellent. So let's move now to the moon changes, the moon sign changes. The thing about this week with the moon's changes, this week the moon will march through the Saturn ruled sector of the zodiac. You get the Capricorn moon and the Aquarius moon there on Wednesday through into Sunday. It's all Saturn. So most of this week is a moon controlled by Saturn. We have a very strong Saturn in Aquarius. That Saturn and Aquarius story is just operative. It's been operative and it will continue to be operative all through 2022. We don't get a break from it. It's been all of 2021, will be all of 2022. And Saturn is the authority structures, the governments, the old ways of doing things, the old powers. It is just sort of the restrictive ways that reality can run. It's even the imposition of new orders as they come down. Often if you look at history, Saturn and Aquarius has had new installations of new governments and new structures. So there's this kind of productive power Saturn in Aquarius. But it is an imposition often, or an implementation, and that will push people out and can sometimes feel cold and like there's no choice. You know, that's Saturn. You have no choice. You just do what Saturn says, and you know, and often it can be grief-inducing and suffering and isolating. So we're seeing that, you know, in the collective. And so this week with the lunar cycle, we're mixing with that energy maybe more than we have. You know, every 28 days the moon will come through these two signs. So and then we've got this combination of the full moon in Aquarius on Sunday. First, the moon will meet Jupiter and conjoin Jupiter, and then make that full moon. In the hours before the full moon, the moon will meet Jupiter there. Then it enters Pisces, the watery, dissipating feel of Pisces. I think this Pisces moon is good to just kind of basically say, oh, all right, it's over. The Leo Aquarius dance is over, and we can sort of settle in. I think about when people float on the pool, you know, you just kind of float, you let that water take you. It's sort of a release. I know I was seeing some people doing these floating chambers where you get into the dark and just float. That's kind of what I'm feeling this Pisces transit to be, as a way to get beyond and sort of in the wake of this Leo Aquarius opposition. I keep talking about it, and I will keep talking about it because it's a very big deal. Maybe we can get some of that cleansing waters, those Piscean waters, to kind of chill. Now we get a waning moon, it's good to rest. And so I love that. Now, the thing about the moon this week is no moon is safe from Saturn or Mars except for this Capricorn moon. Every other moon is either square Saturn, conjoined Saturn, or square Mars. Remember, Mars is now in Virgo, so that mutable axis is, all signs in the mutable axis are in hard aspect to Mars. That's not ideal for the lunar energy. But neither is a Capricorn moon in its exile. The moon is exiled in Capricorn, uncomfortable. And so you'll see in my chart of the week, it's a perfect example of how, when there's no good options, how do you pick a good option amongst none of the larger scale signs being an ideal option? And I'll show you what I'll do. I've got some ideas for the Sag moon, I think, that can be useful for my transit of the week. So that's the lunar cycle. We're waxing. It might be intensifying all week into that final full moon on the weekend, where we can then end the week in that Pisces moon. That's the basic summary. But look for intensification this week. Anytime you have waxing energy, there's a sense of growth and dynamism. I may go out here, you know, the city I'm in, there's a lot of stuff happening outside, groups of people, and at night. And I think these full moons are kind of fun if you like people watching or being out with like youthful energy of party goers and just people outside talking to each other. I love those full moon evenings for that, because there really is a palpable sense of the kind of human element, this kind of vibrating human element out there, you know, into the world to experience other people's vibrating human element. That's kind of anodyne, isn't it? Or that's a strange way to express that. But anyhow, I'm just saying here, the human energy, that kind of vibrant, teeming force of life. I really like being out in it sometimes when there's a full moon. Okay, let's go. Let's go to the chronological list for these transits of the week, the list of transits I'm interested in this week. This is the first chart I wanted to take a look at. 16. This is here Monday. Venus coming into Libra. Again, I've talked about it so much. I've hyped it up. So many of us have hyped it up. And the reason why, check out the chart. Venus in Libra, averse to Mars. Venus in Libra, trine to the lunar nodes. So not really eclipse wonky. Venus in Libra, trine to Saturn. So these are easier aspects to the difficult planets that we have, the planets that can bring difficulty. So if you're looking for pure Venus, goodness, pure pleasure, pure connection, pure relationship, this is it. This is the transit. And you get Venus here. All of the transit through Libra is protected and safe from Saturn and Mars. First time that Venus has been safe from Saturn and Mars for its whole transit through Libra since 2016. So that's 5 years. We've had 5 years without a full Venus and Libra transit. And it's the first time since 2017 that we've had Venus and Libra at all without Mars or Saturn making a hard aspect. In 2017, I think about a week in, Mars entered Libra. And so you had Venus and Mars together there in 2017, but still you had that week of this kind of sweet Venus. But we'll get Venus in its own Egyptian terms in late Libra for the first time since 2016 without Saturn or Mars making a hard dynamic aspect. And so this is wonderful, wonderful energy, love, relationships, connections, agreements. You know, the trine to Jupiter very much helps, I think, because Jupiter can kind of add sort of big and bold, sweet overtures of connection and love here. You know, and thinking about air signs, these are day-sec signs. Mercury is a triplicity lord. Saturn is a triplicity lord. This Libra Venus can often be about agreements that are formalized in writing, telling someone or talking through our love or the things that we need or the boundaries we want in a relationship. All of these things can buoy and solidify relations with others when we have these kind of structured, more formalized agreements. That's why people say Libra can be law. You see the scales in the Libra constellation. That is symbolic of, you know, the blind justice. You see this in courthouses or in like legal symbolism. Often you have a blindfolded justice, lady justice that's holding the scales, because there is a certain formalization of relations that come through the air sign of Venus. Now, I don't think it has to be strictly these kind of really formal things. I mean, we do have just a strong Venus, so the natural significations of Venus are completely empowered here. And those include all kinds of body and touch and sensuality and all of these other earthy, kind of pleasurable sides of Venus. Art, beauty, singing. You might want to get into your art right now if you're playing an instrument or you've been wanting to practice. This is a really good period. Just under 4 weeks of this Venus in Libra. Very potent, very excellent energy. I'm so excited for it. Some of the best benefic energy we've had, you know, since, you know, maybe some of those Jupiter and Pisces transits. After Jupiter went retrograde, there was some interesting energy there. But again, it was a slow retrograde Jupiter almost preparing for next year. This is a Venus moving fast, visible in the evening sky as an evening star. All of this transit, you can go out at night and see that glowing goddess and actually communicate, you know, as just a general principle of communication here. If you're an astrological magician, you can certainly do things with Venus in terms of communication. But let me come back here. The other thing I want to mention is that when Venus is in these first degrees here, which Venus will be in this week, there is a mutual reception with Saturn in Aquarius in Venus's Egyptian terms, Venus in Saturn's Egyptian terms, and Saturn being the exaltation ruler of Libra. So Saturn and Venus make this great trine, this air trine, and then via dignity, they're exchanging energies here in a way that we won't have in quite the same way when, actually I think we get this during the whole of the transit. Let's just pull it up. Let's pull up Solar Fire. I sometimes don't like to do it, but why not? We have the Solar Fire here. We'll just get Solar Fire. I will share my screen, share this view chart. Let me animate it. Let me share my animated chart. And so if we just move through here by the day, we can see that Venus here, so I'm looking at Saturn's term, and Saturn does stay in the term of Venus all the way through Venus's transit. So there will be some exchange there because Saturn is ruled by Venus by Egyptian term, and Venus by exaltation will be ruled by Saturn. So this whole transit, you'll get these exchanges via dignity, though in those first degrees it's more potent and more powerful. And because you'll have a doubling up of dignity, terms dignity and exaltation dignity, terms rulership and exaltation rulership by Saturn of Venus while Venus is in those first degrees in Libra. Let's see how long that's going to last here. I know, by the way, I'm kind of nerding out on some astrological technicalities here. Some of you that listen to this might not be as interested in these types of discussions, but some of my astrologer listeners, this is the kind of stuff we are very interested in because it allows us to make the then more large-scale sweeping delineations that are more user-friendly. We base those delineations on this exact type of work. So Venus will leave the terms of Saturn this week. So there's only the first 5 days here, 4 or 5 days of Venus in Libra, where you get that very strong exchange. Let me go back to the PPT. And so if we come back here, This mutual reception I'm talking about is really for 5 days this week at its strongest. But what it means is that you have stable connection. Just what I was saying earlier, you make these legal agreements to formalize longevity in a relationship, to protect it from threats so that it can last longer. That's the Saturn. Maybe this first 5 days will be a good time to talk or have a talk with someone or think about what your needs are, what you want to formalize or discuss or dialogue or get agreements from others about. I would use this. I think it's very powerful with these 5 days, but then also during Venus's whole transit in Libra, it's also a good opportunity with the trine, the air trine with Saturn. Excuse me. Okay, so let's move. That's really what I have to say about Venus and Libra. I mean, it's excellent, awesome energy. It'll come up over and over again as we look at individual charts during these moments of breaking things down. So that I do every week. So let me go to this next chart. 17 August. This is Tuesday. This is the next day, 8 p.m. This is my transit of the week, 8 p.m. in Central Europe. And it's a great example because in this chart, though the moon is making a sign-based square to Mars, what else are we going to get here during this week? We have a Scorpio moon. That's never a good moon for electional work or for energetic work. It's more of a kind of hunker down and get into difficulty type of transit. Some people like that. Nothing wrong with that. But if we're just talking about electional astrological rules in a general way, you don't want the Scorpio moon. You don't want the Capricorn moon. Moon's in exile. And then the Aquarius moon, the moon is conjoined Saturn. So what are we going to do out of those 4 choices? I would pick this Sag moon. And it's a great example where even in a sign-based angular relationship with a difficult planet or point like the nodes, you can get the moon where it's separating from those difficult aspects. And as it separates, it's a continuum, those aspects maybe can weaken, though they're still operative by the sign, and they're not ideal. When you have to pick, like we have to pick this week, this is the one I would pick. And there's some other things to like about this chart. You know, if you can get the moon on the midheaven, like I can here in Central Europe, it's what? 16 degrees away from the south node. It is 12 degrees separating from Mars. So it's out of, even though it's angular to those, it's hopefully as diminished as we can get. This moon is applying to a trine to the sun. You have this fire trine with the moon and the sun. Always nice to have the moon and the sun within an easygoing trine or sextile because it's the body and the soul. When there's talking well, it can be this sort of alignment of selfhood that's available here. But check out what ruler Jupiter is doing. Ruler Sagittarius Jupiter is closely also applying to the oppose the sun. And so I love this for this idea that we can use this Jupiter-Sun opposition, which can be expansion of selfhood, epiphanies around the self, emboldenment of the idea of who we are. That all happens in a Sun Jupiter opposition, but now it's ruling this moon. And so the other thing I really like about this chart is the moon is in a sign-based sextile to Venus and a sign-based sextile to Jupiter. So you have double support from both benefic planets. So if you're looking for something to do this week, I would say the second half of the Sagittarius moon can be a good option here, especially if you're looking at even later, like this moon is 4 degrees from an application to Jupiter, which can be nice. So less than ideal moons this week. This is the one I would pick. This is the one I would use. Okay, let's move. Next transit. This is Thursday, 19 August, about 5:30 a.m. We get the Mars-Mercury conjunction, and this is why I want to mention this or focus on this Mars-Mercury conjunction. It's the ruler of Virgo, conjoining Mars, a dynamic, energized planet. But I feel like this transit is almost giving us it's the first perfected aspect that we've had in Virgo. Venus and Mars did not conjoin in Virgo. They conjoined, or did they? Let me make sure I'm not talking out of my hindsight. Let me see here. Let me just get this up. You can just see what I'm checking here. I don't believe they did. I believe they were. Yeah, it was in Leo when they met. So this is the first time 2 planets are joining and mixing energy in Virgo. And I just have here, remember, we've shifted from fixed heavy sky to now mutable heavy sky, particularly when the sun enters Virgo on Sunday. You'll have 3 planets in Virgo. and then you'll have 2 planets in the fixed signs, and 1 planet, Venus, in cardinal signs, and then the moon changing every 2.5 days. So we're mutable heavy now, and whereas before we were fixed heavy for a long time in the sky, now we've shifted into a mutable heavy sky. And this aspect is kind of a kick-off way, and an energetic kind of punctuation of that shift. The ruler of mutable Virgo conjoining Mars. So I love this as an aspect to dig into, because it can maybe give us a flavor of how this mutable season is unfolding, and some of the energies that this mutable season will bring. I have here the force of thought, the power of insight, the details break up and end a thing. And this is the one sentence I wanted to focus on, details breaking up and ending a thing. Sometimes when you read the fine print, there's something that's clearly so, an anathema to what your goal is, or so, odious, to use that term. Mario Savio, I don't know if you've seen that Berkeley free speech movement. He's like, it's so odious. Sometimes you have to throw your bodies on the machine, on the gears of the machine. It's one of my favorite speeches from that Berkeley free speech moment, that old school activism where it's just impassioned speech from the 20th century. But this is a similar thing. You can break up a machine by examining details, and Mars signifies the breaking up and separation of things. That's why it can mean breakups sometimes, or endings through difficult, almost explosive moments that end a thing. When you combine Mars and Mercury, and Mars being in Virgo here, with ruler Mercury joined here, you can use a mercurial analytical model to actually be the force of breakage. And this is great for any time you're in a so-called battle, or an adversarial relationship. We're in them all the time. It's adversarial buying a cup of coffee sometimes, because you may need to negotiate the price, or, that's one way to look at reality. I don't look at reality that way often, but just for purpose of this metaphor, life is just full of kind of adversity. And sometimes you read that fine print and use the mind as a way to win those moments where you can maybe benefit yourself or others. So it's also here strategy for the fall. I think this mutable season, remember, it's wearing 2 hats. It's the 2 energies simultaneous. We have the Leo and the Libra. We're in between the fixed fire and the cardinal air. We're in between the summer and the fall in the northern hemisphere, when you have this mutable energy. And you can see that right here in this chart. You've got the Sun in Leo and Venus in Libra, the rulers of those other 2 signs, and then Mercury here in Virgo. It's strategizing for the fall, I guess is what I'm saying. We're in this kind of shifting sands, mutable energy, using this to maybe plan. Maybe you'll do a little bit of plan here for the first half of this week when this aspect's applying. What do you want to do this fall? What are your plans for the fall? How are you gonna survive or thrive? What do you want to inject into the world? What do you want to create? These are all the kind of powerful ways we can work with Mars. The force, the breakage, the passion. A lot of us want to break out of our stasis and move into something better in life. Mars can be really, really good for that. So I would not sleep on this Thursday early a.m. here in Central Europe, Wednesday evening, about midnight there in New York City. Now, the one fixed star I wanted to look at this week is this star Coxa. It's in the hind side of Leo, and will be very close to this Mercury-Mars conjunction. This website, Constellation of Words, my favorite fixed star website, says it's in the back hip of the lion. If we go to Ptolemy, so Robeson quoting Ptolemy here, says that those in the loins of the Leo constellation, the stars in the loins, are like Saturn and Venus. Those in the thighs resemble Venus and to some degree Mercury. So I'm not sure if Coxa here, it looks like it's closer to the loins than the thigh. But either way, it's still Venus. There's a Venusian component to the energy of this star, which I find apropos. We have a strong Venus in the sky. You think about that hind feature of an animal. Sometimes it's muscles that are beautifully defined. There's something very regal about lions in general, but about the dynamic hind side of an animal that can be very beauteous, like Venus. We can stand in awe of nature and nature's creation, I think. This might be what the Coxa fixed star energetic here, hitting this part of the Leo constellation, may be asking us to do. I have here beauty in the plan, beauty in the articulation, beauty in the defense. I go back to that Mario Savio video. I had no idea I'd be talking about that, by the way, this week. Go find it on YouTube, Mario Savio, Berkeley Free Speech. Listen to his speech and how beautiful he is in that passionate moment of articulation of his resistance to the threat against the human right of free speech. There's beauty. It's beautiful to watch him powerfully articulate. And that's where I think this star can help us here as you're getting into your plan. Also beauty in the plan. Some of you that like journaling, or what's that type of journaling? Bullet journaling that people do. They have these perfectly beautiful journals with all the different colored markers. That's also, I think, what we can lead into here. Not only because Coxa is of the nature or similar in energy to Venus, but because Venus is in Libra during this moment too. And by Egyptian term, this conjunction happens in the terms of Venus. And so there's also a Venusian component in terms of the rulership of this Mars-Mercury meeting. So there's a lot of Venus in this moment. Saturn-Venus energy too, I wouldn't sleep on. You have that exchange that I've already talked about. But bringing that kind of Saturnian structured, maybe longer term approach to our planning and the beauty of the planning, there's a Saturn moment here with that mutual reception that we've already discussed. So it's very good. And the loins, according to Ptolemy, like Saturn and Venus. And just a quick note on the fixed stars. I use tropical fixed stars that have that are projected. Their position is projected onto the ecliptic, and a tropical degree is assigned for a fixed star, even though it might be way off of the ecliptic. And these fixed stars are very rich, they're very complicated, they're in the sphere above the sphere of Saturn, the 8th planetary sphere. And so they almost trump the stars, the planets. They're more important and more powerful in a way. These associations we make are not to claim that the stars are just kind of brought into the world of the planets. Actually, the stars are their own thing, which is why I like to encourage the myth of the constellation as the primary touch point for how we examine stars. But sometimes when Ptolemy, for example, says this star has a resonance with this planet, I don't think about it as the planet superseding the star. It's just that they have kind of a similarity. So we just think about what is Venus: beauty, pleasure, touch, these sorts of things. That can be the energy of this part of the lion. So just a quick little explanation there. Let's move. So Sunday, now we're getting into the final moments of the Leo Aquarius oppositions of this summer. And there may be the sweetest in some sense, because this moon, we already said Friday the sun opposes Jupiter. So that's a sweet Jupiterian moment. And then we'll have Saturday, let me see here, when exactly did the moon come into Aquarius? Let me just look at that. So it comes into Aquarius at 10 a.m. on Friday. Okay, so we have the moon co-present with Jupiter. The sun will oppose Jupiter 8 hours before the moon enters Aquarius. So we have that very Jupiterian, energetic sent to the light of the sun. Then the moon comes 8 hours later to mix with Jupiter. And so really all weekend, it's kind of a Jupiter moment here with Jupiter building. Let me go back to here we go. With Jupiter kind of defining the connection with the sun and the moon, and mixing with Jupiter and Aquarius, and leading up to this culmination here, 2 p.m. Central Europe, this full moon in Aquarius. And I just want to mention here, this full moon is double ruled by Saturn. By domicile, Saturn rules Aquarius, but by Egyptian term, these and the last degrees of Aquarius also ruled by Saturn. And you look at the ancient texts. I've been writing my article on the terms, making good progress on it. I'm excited about releasing that, sharing everything I'm discovering and learning and writing about. But you see several writers talk about the doubling up of planetary energy. If a point is in the terms of the planet that it's also in the domicile of, you get a doubling up. That's exactly the words from the translation. So this is really a doubling up of Saturn. And remember, we had first had a full moon in Aquarius. Then we had a new moon in Leo, but in the terms of Saturn. And the first full moon was ruled by Saturn. Then we had a new moon in the terms of Saturn in Leo. And now we're getting a full moon doubly ruled by Saturn. It's been a lot of Saturn over the last 6 weeks, we see it in the world, way more restricted than it was before this series of syzygies began. Astrology works, astrology works. And so I have here even maybe more cold, restrictive, harsh separation with this full moon, this climactic moment of the full moon. But effort and work can be rewarded later on. So stay with, in the face of difficulty in the outer world, stay with it. Because I think you'll be rewarded for whatever you're kind of holding the line against. You'll be rewarded for that, or whatever you're working towards. The other thing I'll say about this syzygy, I say dig in and dig deep, because hope may be obscured, restricted, or locked away in service of the Aquarian demands right now. That's Jupiter coming back into Aquarius, where Jupiter now filters through Saturn, is co-present with Saturn. It's almost like Jupiter is told by Saturn, stop, you don't get to do anything you want, you get to serve me now. And we know what Saturn has brought, the Saturn in Aquarius, this kind of very heavily restricted world. But hope is not snuffed away, it's just serving Saturn for now. And this is Jupiter's final time in Aquarius. It's going to give us what it can. Jupiter ruling Saturn, it's got to give a bunch to Saturn, but there's still pockets there. Remember the lingering things created during the 3 months of Jupiter in Pisces, when the world sort of was a little bit more optimistic. That's coming back big time for 5 months in the beginning of 2022. So hold your hope, hold on to it. Don't lose it. And keep with your mind and your heart and your visioning. You can feed those visions every day, even though the astrology maybe isn't as robustly supportive of that for this fall moment. And also you have your Venus overcoming this syzygy by trine. So Venus is making this sign-based trine. It's making a very close trine to Saturn, the ruler of the syzygy, and then a sign-based overcoming trine to the moon and to Jupiter. And there's beauty in the struggle and the harshness and in the fight for boundaries. There is beauty in these Saturnian challenges that we're facing collectively and that you have individually. You look at a body that's been working all day. These bodies are chiseled. They're strong and chiseled. There's actually a physical beauty that comes with work and effort. And then there's just the beauty of the dignity that comes with committing to something and facing challenge. If I have two people and one turns away and runs and hides and one says, I'm ready, let's face this. I kind of think it's more beautiful to just have courage and to stand and face something. Now, it's not to shame anybody who can't do that or anybody who's not able to do that. We all have times when we retreat or we are afraid, and that's fine. I'm just saying, find the beauty in your challenge is the main point. Okay. And I think it's an interesting point. The challenge of exercise every day, that's how you get that chiseled body. The Venus comes from the Saturn. They flow and work together. All right, so that is the weekly astrology. Very interesting week. Like I said, I'm very pumped and very excited about it. Let's move here. Let's get some cards. Let's pull some tarot cards. Let's see what the tarot is going to say and what symbols we can get from the tarot, what symbols we can add using the cards. All right, first card is, this first card is let me see here, where are we? Okay, Ace of Spades. Wonderful card to have, especially in a week when Venus comes to Libra. This is almost the best card we can get for that, because and shortly after, a month after Jupiter came to Aquarius, roughly, or 3 weeks after Jupiter comes to Aquarius, 3 weeks later Venus comes to Libra. So we have both benefic planets now in air signs, and this of course corresponds to the air element in this system. And so what new ideas are you operating with? What new ways of thinking have emerged now that Jupiter has returned to Aquarius? The processes by which you receive ideas, by which you take ideas in. I think here about like an audiobook. That's certainly the electricity of air signs and the technology of air signs. And then you're letting ideas flow in, sometimes with a beautiful voice. Was it mellifluous? I can't say the word, mellifluous. And that's going to bother me. Let me get the exact pronunciation of that word. Voice. Let me see here. I'm going to get this up. Sometimes, so there's melodious voice, but that's not the word I'm looking for. We'll just go with that. A melodious voice, reading a book, giving you ideas. This is the kind of energy that might be able to come in with some new ideas via text or via something you're learning or reading about. And so I think this is just wonderful to have now. We're having this air season for 3 weeks with both benefics and air signs, and it's a real opportunity to have some new energy burst through in your life. Maybe it's already started and then we'll continue. So that's my read for this Ace of Spades. Really cool card to get in a week when, like I said, Venus comes into Libra. Let's get the last card here. Let's check out what we can get from the Tarot of Marseille God deck. Okay, again, we pull the Earth Knight. So that's what we had. I think it was even last week or the week before, the Earth Knight. And so we're again now in Virgo. This Earth Knight is just corresponds to the Earth energy. So both of these cards are corresponding to elements. And I think that's cool because it's not pointing to a specific sign of the zodiac or sector of a sign. We're at the level of just energies, Earth energy and air energy. And what planets rule both Earth signs and air signs? Pop quiz. That's Mercury and Venus. They both have rulership over. So Mercury rules Virgo and Gemini, an earth sign and an air sign. And Venus rules Libra and Taurus, an air sign and an earth sign. And where are they in the sky this week? They're both in their home signs. So I think that's what this is maybe pointing us to, in my view. We are getting pointed out. It's something I didn't talk about, but maybe I should have talked about more. We will have 3 planets, the Sun, Mercury, and Venus, all in their home signs. And then once the Sun comes to Virgo, we'll have Venus in Virgo. So how do we use this combination of energy? We can be inspired intellectually, but then put things into practice in the physical form and in the physical environment. So it's how ideas get filtered and into action. This relationship between thought and action is really what I'm seeing here. And I think this second position is pointing me towards Virgo season as being a time when maybe you want to really deepen into your materiality. Maybe as the shifting energy is happening, you can rely on things around you, rely on the materials in your environment. Maybe it's good for like recycling things, not going out to buying new things, but using what you have, using the tools you have, following through on the commitments of the projects you've already committed to. That's how I see this Virgo energy, with Mars there giving, and then with Venus and Libra. So that is the tarot reading. That is the weekly astrology. Thank you for being here. This is S.J. Anderson. I'm very happy to be here. You can go to my website, sjanderson144.com. Click here to schedule a reading right on top. I love to do readings, tarot readings, astrology readings. I'd be honored to read for you. You can also join my Patreon to support these videos. I'm very grateful to my supporters and honored just to be here doing this for you. So have a wonderful week ahead, and I'll talk to you very, very soon.